Do you want to pass your next Salesforce certification exam? Well, you're in the right place. This is Salesforce exam questions. If you're new to this series, we work through 10 Salesforce questions per video to help you understand how to read the questions for keywords and study up on important concepts. This all increases your likelihood of selecting the right answer on the exam. You will likely see some version of these questions on the exam, so stay tuned. Today we're going to be going through the practical applications of Sales Cloud expertise section of the Sales Cloud Consultant Salesforce exam. So let's jump right in. We're going to hit about 10 questions today. So question number 1. Sales reps at CloudKicks often receive important customer emails they want to record as activities related to contacts in Salesforce. CloudKicks has Office 365 as well as a policy that prevents users from installing anything directly on their computers. Which solution should a consultant recommend to meet this requirement? Okay, so what we're trying to achieve here is we're trying to automatically relate our activities and things we're trying to automatically relate things from our email to aspects of our Salesforce instance. So our activities and our contacts that reside within Salesforce. So the Lightning Console for Sales, it's an app and it allows you to view multiple records and related records on the same screen. It's a good tool to boost productivity because everything is right there, it's really organized, and there's a ton of functionality within this console. You can read emails from here, and maybe you can manually associate them to records, but nothing at scale, nothing that's automated and replicable at a larger scale. So this is a possibility, but I don't think this is the best answer to this question. So I'm going to cross that one off. Next, we have Einstein Activity Capture. So Einstein Activity Capture automatically keeps data between Salesforce and your email and calendar in sync. And it works for Google Mail as well as for Microsoft Outlook. And that's hence the importance of this question mentioning Office 365. We know we need some sort of Microsoft functionality. And so Einstein Activity Capture is the best option, I think, for this question. This is a tool that relates automatically things from your email to records within your Salesforce instance. So this sounds like a better choice than the Lightning Console app. Finally, we have the Salesforce for Outlook. So Salesforce for Outlook is being retired and all of its functionality is now within the Einstein Activity Capture, basically. So this is not going to be the answer to this question because this feature has been retired. So the answer to this question would be Einstein Activity Capture should be what the consultant would recommend. In this question, I think it's really important for you to know what Einstein Activity Capture is and also to know that the Salesforce for Outlook is being retired. You might see these two pop up as answer choices together frequently, and you would need to know that Salesforce for Outlook no longer exists and Einstein Activity Capture does what Salesforce for Outlook used to be able to do. Okay, so the answer to this is B. Let's hit the next question. So, what are two considerations for enabling multiple currencies at CloudKicks? And we're choosing two answers here. So, multi currencies allows users to create reports and opportunities in different currencies. Sometimes you have organizations that operate at a multinational level. They're selling products and working with customers in different countries, and so they're selling products in different currencies. And so this is a really important feature. It's definitely going to come up on the exam. So let's take a look at option A. Accounts, opportunities, leads, cases, and opportunity product schedules support multi-currency reporting. That is true. So that's already one of our two answer choices. Basically, in addition to the objects that are here listed in option A, multi-currency can also support campaigns, opportunities, and opportunity products. So that's something additionally that you want to know in addition to accounts, opportunities, leads, cases, and opportunity product schedules. And then let's look at B. The multi-currency enablement process is irreversible. That is true. Once you turn on advanced currency management, it cannot be turned off. So we already have our two answers, A and B, but let's just look at C to see what it's saying. So when multi-currency is enabled, changes to exchange rates update the converted amount on all records except closed opportunities. That is untrue. So with currency exchange rates, they can change. And when multi-currency is enabled, these changes to exchange rates update on all records, including closed opportunities. So this is not true. It includes closed opportunities. All records will be updated with the new currency rate. So that is wrong. So I don't know why this is changing between two different types of markings, but we're just gonna go with it. Okay. So the answer to this question is A and B. So let's look at question 3. The CloudKicks IT team wants to enable person accounts in its Salesforce org. Which two prerequisites must be met before the consultant can enable person accounts? And again, we're choosing two. So, in case you haven't heard what person accounts are, this is a really important topic. Didn't mean to cross that out. Let me do that better. So person accounts is really important, and this is going to come up on the exam for sure. So person accounts are individual people rather than companies. And so its account and contact fields are combined into a single record called a person account. Typically in Salesforce, when we're talking about accounts, we're thinking about companies like Google or Microsoft. But a person account will be an individual like John Smith. Okay, so it's not a company. So this question is asking, what do we need to think about before we enable person accounts? So at least one record type should be created for accounts. That is true. You must create a person account record type. So within the account object, you need a person account record type when you enable person accounts. So this would be one of our answers. B, the organization-wide default for both accounts and contacts should be set to public read write. This is untrue. The organization-wide default must be set to either contact is controlled by parent or both contact and account are private. So this is wrong. So remember that when person accounts are enabled, the OWD must be set to either contact is controlled by parent or both account and contact are private. And then C, user profiles with read access to accounts must also have read access to contacts. This is true because person accounts are a cross between accounts and contacts. So the correct answer to this question is A and C. Now let's move on to question 4. The CloudKicks sales team needs to utilize the Salesforce mobile app feature to view, create, or update opportunities. But the internet is unavailable on their Android and iOS mobile devices. Which two actions should the consultant recommend to work around the issue? So, A, enable the system permission to store offline data. This does not exist. There is no system permission to store offline data, okay? So we're choosing two answers, and we have two answer choices left. So let's talk about why B and C are correct. So B, enable caching in Salesforce. So caching is a well-known technical term, not just within Salesforce, but in technology in general. Caching stores frequently accessed data on the device, and cached data can be accessed even when the device is offline. So it allows access to records without the internet. Okay, so this is exactly what we need. We need access to records without internet, like the question says. Internet is unavailable. So if you haven't heard of caching before, maybe you might know the word caching just in its as an English word. It means to store for future use. So that should help you to remember that. So, and then C, we have enable the connect offline feature in Salesforce. This is also correct. So Salesforce offline allows data to be stored locally and then updated in Salesforce when the internet is restored. So the purpose of this is maybe you might have sales reps that are on the road and they're selling things in the field, and they might be in certain environments with poor internet connection. They might be taking the subway where there might be no internet and they need to pull up a record or make a quick change to a record. So this is where being able to use the mobile devices in an offline way comes in really handy. There's a real business use case for this. So this is an important question to remember. When you need to access records offline, you need to enable caching in Salesforce and enable the connect offline feature in Salesforce, as well as the system permission to store offline data does not exist. Okay, let's hit the next question. So question 5. The enterprise architect for CloudKix wants to understand how objects in Sales Cloud are connected to one another. Which 2 approaches should a consultant use to help the architect? Okay, 2 answers again. So use a schema builder to show a visual of related objects. This is definitely one of our correct answers. So the schema builder in Salesforce displays relationships, and you can access this by going to setup and typing in schema builder, and you're just going to see a whole bunch of interconnecting boxes and lines. It showcases all the relationships between fields and objects within Salesforce. So this is definitely going to be important if we're talking about how objects are connected or related to one another. Then B, explain the types of object relationships in Salesforce. This will be important. The consultant would need to explain this because the enterprise architect, like the question says, they're looking at various IT systems. Okay, so the enterprise architect might there might be an organization that's using Salesforce, they might be using SAP, they might be using ServiceNow, they might be using a combination of all of these systems, and the enterprise architect might not know in depth everything about Salesforce. And so this is where the consultant would come in and not just show the schema builder, but also explain the types of object relationships in Salesforce. So that's definitely important. We know that C is not the correct answer, but let's just go through it. So review the Object Manager tab in Setup with the customer. This is not going to be helpful. Object Manager in Setup, the Object Manager tab does not display anything about relationships. It mainly gives you just a list of the objects in your org. It does not show you how they are connected, which is what the question asks. So this is definitely not the answer. So we have A and B for this question. So CloudKix wants to implement sharing rules. Which 2 considerations should the consultant explain to CloudKix? So choose 2 answers. So, in order to take the Sales Cloud exam, if you're taking this, I'm going to assume that you have your admin exam certificate already, because sharing rules are a pretty fundamental concept for the admin exam. So sharing rules extend access horizontally within the org, okay? So choose 2 answers. When multiple sharing rules are assigned, the user is assigned the least restrictive access. That is true. That's just something you gotta memorize. And then CloudKix can expand access beyond the organization-wide default levels with sharing rules. That's also true. That is the definition of a sharing rule, to expand access beyond what's normal, beyond the OWD. And then C, we know this is not the right answer. When a sharing rule is deleted, the sharing access created by that rule must be manually removed. That is not true. When the sharing rule is deleted, the access is automatically removed. It does not need to be manually removed. So let's keep going to question 7. CloudKix has configured account teams and is ready to go live in production. How should the consultant migrate the account team configuration to production? So what's going on here? So the assumption in this question is that account teams, right, were created in a sandbox. And a sandbox is a copy of the live Salesforce instance. It's recommended that you do your configurations in the sandbox and then you send that to your production rather than doing any configuration directly in your production, okay? So change sets, as option A says, deploy them with change sets. Change sets normally work It normally would work for deploying account changes, but it does not work in this instance. Account teams cannot be added to a change set, along with mail merge templates, case feed layouts, and about 50 other components. But it's really important for this exam, know that account teams cannot be deployed with change sets. Okay, account teams, they're probably going to repeat this question to make sure that you know that not everything can be deployed with a change set. And account teams is one that frequently comes up that they try to test to make sure you know that this cannot be deployed with a change set. So we know the choice is not A. Distribute them with packages. This does not really make sense, I will say. So a package is a container of components. Typically, they can be installed from a third party directly into your Salesforce org. And you wouldn't really do any configuration in a package and then install it to update your org. So this is really, it's not something that people do and not best practice. So we're left with C, and this is the correct choice. Creating anything manually in Salesforce is often, in many questions, is not really the one you want to go for, because Salesforce is so really good at automating and automations, and they love when you use automations, and a lot of the answers to these questions are going to be things that could be automated or pre-built processes that Salesforce has come up with. So it's really rare that you would get a question where creating something manually is choice. But C is the correct answer in this instance. You would have to create account teams manually in the production org, and to do that, you're just repeating the steps you took in the sandbox. So you're basically building it twice, and it's really inefficient. And that's why creating things manually often is not the correct answer in a lot of the Salesforce exams, but it is in this instance. So question 8. The sales director at CloudKicks wants to prevent users from viewing each other's opportunities, but wants them to check to see that the account already exists prior to creating a new account. Which organization-wide default should the consultant recommend? Okay, so let's think about what we need to know here. Account, it's saying that the sales reps need to see that the account exists. Account already exists. They need to see that the account already exists, right? So we know that account cannot be private. If the organization-wide default for an object is set to private, you cannot see records of that object that you do not own. But this question wants reps to see records of the object that they do not own. So this cannot be private. This needs to be public read-only is one option. We're looking at A. Account can be public read-only. So we already know that we are going to cross out B because account cannot be private. Now let's think about opportunities, okay? So they want to prevent users from viewing each other's opportunities. So what that means is opportunities needs to be private, because when the OWD for opportunity is private, users cannot see records that they do not own for that object. Okay, so what we have is we need opportunities to be private, and we need account to be public read-only. So the only answer choice that gives us that is A. Account public read-only, opportunity to private. Okay, account and opportunity both cannot be public read-only. Account can be public read-only, but opportunity cannot be, because we need to prevent users from viewing each other's opportunities. So this will not be the choice. So A is the correct answer here. This is a good one where it's good to think about it before sort of looking at the answer choices and kind of organize in your head who needs to see what and who can't see what, and then kind of look at the answer choices, okay, so that you don't get confused. So we're moving right along. We're almost at the end. So Universal Containers has established sales ops teams as part of the sales process. Tasks are used to track all customer interactions. Universal Containers wants any available sales ops team member to handle these tasks as soon as possible. Which Salesforce functionality should the consultant recommend to meet the requirement? So, use a flow to create a task for each team member. Okay, this can work. So, I'm not going to eliminate this yet. Okay, you can use a flow to assign a task. Flow helps you to do complex automations. This is not really complex, so I'm not going to cross it out yet, but I'm just going to keep that caveat in your mind. You can use a flow to assign a task, but it's not really the best option, generally speaking, because this is a really simple automation. It's not that complex. So you wouldn't really want to bring flow in here. But let's see the other choices. So create opportunity teams to manage tasks. So this is definitely not the answer. So opportunity teams are not designed solely to manage tasks, okay? You would create an opportunity team to collaborate with a group of other users on an opportunity. There might be tasks that you could assign within that opportunity team, but task assignment is not the sole purpose of the opportunity team. So you wouldn't create the opportunity to manage tasks. You create the opportunity team to work on an opportunity. And by default, you could manage tasks within it, but that's not the goal of the opportunity team. So if you just need to manage tasks, you don't need to create an opportunity team. So B is not the answer. Assign tasks to a queue to share work efficiently. So this is already, I think, the most effective answer. So assign tasks to a queue, and then once you assign those tasks to the queue, then individuals can be assigned the tasks from that queue. Okay, individuals would be users would be members of the queue, and they could be assigned the tasks that are being held in the queue. The queue is just a holding space for tasks. You can put other things in queues, like cases. Case queues is another concept, but that's not going to come up on this exam because that's a Service Cloud concept. But queues just hold the tasks, and then members could be assigned the task from the queue. So that's the whole purpose of a queue. So that's why C would be the best answer for this. And flow is not going to work. It can work, but it's too powerful for this kind of automation. There's already sort of a pre-built solution for this in the queues. Okay, that's something really important to think about with these exams. Like, there could be multiple options that work. Like here, flow would work, assign tasks to a queue would work. Opportunity teams, I even said, can work, but you have to think about all the other gray area, right? Flows can work, but not the best for this simple automation. Opportunity teams can work, but that's not why assigning tasks is not why you would create an opportunity team. And so everything here is an option, it's a possibility. But being a consultant, which is what the exam is about finding the best choice, not just any choice, the most efficient, time effective choice. Okay. Moving to the final question 10. Cloud Cakes has just deployed all of its configurations. The admin wants to build a separate process and uses most of the objects that were deployed. What is the best practice a consultant should recommend to the admin? Okay. So we have configurations. So when you're doing this, you want to build in a developer sandbox and test in a test release environment. So we have our answer choices: build in a developer sandbox and test changes in production. That's not going to work. Build in developer sandbox is correct, right? But test changes in production is not. You would never want to, this X is not, this X is not looking good. You never want to test changes in production. Because production is your live instance. You don't want to test in your live org, right? So you automatically this excludes choice A. Build in a test release environment and test in a test release environment. No, you don't build in a test release environment. You don't build in a test release environment. You can test in a test release environment though. So this again, partially correct, which makes it not the right choice here. Build in a developer sandbox. That's what a developer sandbox is for. It's for building all of the components and testing in a test release environment. That makes perfect sense. So C is going to be our choice. So in the word, test release environment, even if you hadn't heard of it before this exam, just kind of think about the keywords here. Test release. You hear it talking about testing. So that hints at the fact that the test release environment could possibly be a place where testing is done. Okay. So even if, this is where you can think about context clues and just think about what you know about the English language. The question is asking about where would you test? And one of the options is a test release environment. So I think, even if you hadn't heard of this before, this would be your best bet. So we're building a developer sandbox and we test in a test release environment. Okay. So that brings us to the end of the 10 questions for practical applications of Sales Cloud expertise for the Sales Cloud Consultant exam. It was such a pleasure going through these 10 questions with you, and stay tuned. We're going to do 10 more in different sections for this exam. So thank y'all, and come back for the next video.